Alright, so we had a problem there with the last video and it stopped halfway through this question. So we'll start this question again. Use the conversion graph to change £5 to dollars. So all we're going to do is we're going to find £5 on this axis. We're going to go up from the £5 and we're going to go along to the dollars axis, and that's going to give us $8. Now, next question says Ella has $200 and £800. Her hotel bill is $600. Ella pays the bill with $200 and some of the pounds. Use the conversion graph to work out how many pounds she has left. So this is one of those questions where there's lots of stages, and we might get some marks on it. Let's see how we get on. So this one really is a sort of dotted line question. I think we can get some marks here, but perhaps not all of them. So let's have a look. Her hotel bill is $600. She pays with $200. So that means 600 minus 200 is $400 left to spend. Now, we can't convert $400 straight away on a conversion graph. Look, it only goes up to $18. What we could do is go for $4, and if I read across at $4, it comes down to this point here. And if we look at that, there's £2 here, £3 here, so each little square is worth 20 pence, so that is £2, 20, 40, 60, so $4 is £2.60. So if I know $4 is £2.60, then $400 is £260. Now you don't have to do that with $4, you could do $10 and then times it by 40, but the idea is to pick a number that goes into 400 and then do a multiply up. So $400 is £260. So out of her £800 she's going to spend 260, and the question says how many pounds does she have left. So we do 800, take away 260, and we get, if we work that out, £540. And any non-calculator method would be fine. Now this one here is collecting like terms, so I've got 5 x's and an x there, so all together we've got 6 x's. I've got 4y, take away 7y, so that's minus 3y altogether. In this one here we've got an equation where we have a set of brackets, so we must expand the bracket. 7 times x is 7x, 7 times 2 is 14, and there's a plus 2 there, it's a positive 7, so positive times a positive, positive answer there. So 7x plus 14 equals 7. So the way that we deal with this one, we look at this bit, cover it up, something plus 14 is 7. Something plus 14 is 7, so that something has got to be a minus 7, and that something was 7x. So 7x equals minus 7, so x equals minus 1 if we divide by 7 on both sides. This next question is one of those where you're just going to have to think about it, read the question carefully and have a think about it. So trams leave Piccadilly to Eccles every 9 minutes and Didsbury every 12 minutes. There's a tram to Eccles and Didsbury. Both of those places have got trams leaving at 9 AM. What time will the next tram be that leaves to goes to Eccles and Didsbury? So for Eccles, Didsbury, they both have trams leaving at 9 AM. And then let's just have a think about it. The next one that leaves for Eccles is 9 minutes later, so that's 9:09, and then 9 minutes later after that, 9:18, and then 9:27, and so on. For Didsbury it's 9 o'clock, 9:12, 9:24, 9:36, and so on. And all we're looking for is a number that comes in both lists, or a time that comes in both lists. There's not one so far, so the next one on this list will be 9:36, and there it is, look, 9:36 in both lists. Next question here. Now, when indices come up, there's always several parts to the question. Here there's 3 parts. If everybody can get the first bit right, that's all we need. So a to the power of 4 times a to the power of 5. The rule is when you're timesing, you add the indices. So that's a to the power of, a to the power of 9. Now, you may be able to remember some of these bits as well and pick up the odd mark, but these bits get quite tricky. But let's have a quick go. 45 divided by 5, e to the power of 6 divided by e, f to the power of 8 divided by f to the power of 2. Well, 45 divided by 5. 45 divided by 5 is 9. E to the power of 6 divided by e to the power of 1, because remember, if there's no power, it's a power of 1. Well, that's e to the power of 5, because the rule is when you're dividing, take away. And that's f to the power of 6 left here. we haven't really done this one officially in class, but a few people know now that if you've got a power of a half, that's a square root. So the square root of 9, answer there is going to be 3. Now the next question, bit of a tricky one. It is a star question, so that means that there's marks for your working out, and it does say give reasons for your answer. Quite a tricky one, but we can technically get full marks for this if we remember everything. So we've got a straight line here, which is parallel to this straight line up here, and it says here that DE equals AE. So this line here, this from D to E, is the same as from A to E. Now, when we did this, what a lot of people realised is that this is an isosceles triangle, so two angles are the same. But what we got wrong is that which angles. So this angle here and this angle here are the same. Okay, so we'll use that fact in a minute. So let's have a look then. The first thing I'm going to say is that we have a sort of Z shape here. So angle AED, so angle AED, remember we write like that, is 38 degrees because alternate angles rule. Okay. Now there's lots of different ways to write this. I think the easiest way of making it clear is probably to mark things on your diagram and just say those two are alternate angles. So that one there is 38 degrees. Now if that's 38 degrees and these two are the same, then what we have is, so this angle, these two are equal because ADE is an isosceles, ADE is an isosceles triangle. So that means that these two altogether add up to 180 minus 38, which is 122. So if those two together add up to 122, then one of them is going to be half of that, which is 61. And then finally, these two add up to 180 degrees because they're on a straight line. Now we've struggled with these in terms of finding how to write down the, where our reasons come from. Now this isn't the proper way to do it, but I think this is probably the easiest way to do something which will get you the mark. So put some arrows on the diagram and mark it on that way. So these add up to 180 degrees because they're on a straight line. So this one here is going to be 180 take away 61. So 119 degrees. Now this one here, worth a lot of marks and quite a difficult one, but it's definitely one that we can do. So we just got to read it very carefully and make sure we're doing things step by step. So Greg shows car insurance and home insurance, and this shows the cost of these insurances. Greg earns £530 basic pay, then 5% of the cost of all the car insurance he sells, and 10% of the cost of all the home insurance he sells, and he sells 6 car insurances and 4 home insurances. Work out the total amount. So there's 3 parts to his pay. There's £530. So that's the first thing he earns. The second thing he earns is the money from the car insurance. Now the car insurance, the total money is 6 car insurances, and they are £200 each. So 6 times 200 is £1,200, and Greg gets 5% of that. So 10% of 1,200 is 120. 5% of 1,200 then has to be 60. So Greg earns £60. So we've got £530 basic pay, £60 from the car insurance, and then finally there's the home insurance. Now that home insurance is 4 lots of £350, and then Greg gets 10%. So 4 times 350, well 2 lots of 350 is 700, so 4 lots is 1,400. We want 10% of that, which is £140, and that's the amount that Greg gets. So altogether he gets 530 plus 140 plus 60, which is £730. That's just a blank page for working out for the last question, and that leaves us with this one. Now this one is, there's a lot of questions on this paper where you've got to read the questions carefully. They're trying to trip you up by giving you loads and loads of details, but the actual maths isn't too bad. So let's read the question here. 5 schools sent some students to a conference. One of the schools sent boys and girls. This school sent 16 boys. The ratio of numbers of boys to girls it sent was 1 to 2. So boys to girls is 1 to 2. Boys to girls, girls is 1 to 2, and I'm drawing the ratio using boxes. The other 4 schools sent only girls. Each of the 5 schools sent the same number of students. Work out the total number of students sent to the conference. So if this school sent boys and girls and it sent 16 boys, then there's 16 boys on the boys side of the ratio, and there's 16 in each box in the ratio, so that means there's 32 girls. That means there's 16 boys and 32 girls, so the total that this school sent is 48 pupils. And there were 4 other schools, and each of the 5 schools, so there's 4 other schools and this school that we've talked about, so there are 5 schools that send the same number of students each, and we want to know the total number of students. So we just need to do 48 times 5, and again I would recommend this method of multiplications. 8 times 5 is 40, 5 times 5 is 20, 0, 4, 2, 240 for our final answer. Question 13, quite a tricky one, not something we covered this year, so I'm missing that out. Question 14, this is something we've covered this year. Cumulative frequency, if you remember, cumulative frequency means add up as you go. So instead of putting this in an extra cumulative, oh, I just spotted a mistake, that should just say frequency just there. Instead of putting on an extra cumulative frequency column here, we just have a cumulative frequency column here. So instead of saying 8 and then adding on the 15 and putting it here, so 8 plus 15 being 23, and then adding on the 30 and getting 53, they just want us to put these numbers and put them down here. So 8, 23, 53, add 17 will take us to 70, add 7 is 77, add 3 takes us to 80. And if you read the question, it does say up here that this is 80 factory workers, and we've got a total frequency, a cumulative frequency of 80. So that's looking good. Now, done that bit. On the grid opposite, draw a cumulative frequency graph. So what you've got to remember for a cumulative frequency graph is you take these numbers here and these numbers here. So I'm going to take 200 and plot it against 8. So we said 200 against 8. So 200 on this axis, 8 up here, and there's a point there. We said 323, so 300 there, 23 there, 453, 400, and all the way up to 50, 1, 2, 3, there we go, 570, 500 goes against 70, 677, 600, 77 there, and 780, there we go. Now if you look at this here, this is an extra little detail here, it starts at 100. So we're going to go 100 is where we're going to start on the axis here, and then it's a curve, so a smooth curve, and we've got a familiar cumulative frequency sort of wonky S-shape type curve there. So there's 2 marks for drawing the cumulative frequency curve, and if you just remember to plot these points against these end boundaries here, then we should get the marks there. Estimate the interquartile range. Well, if you remember the lessons properly, as soon as you see this, we're going to put on lines for the median and the interquartiles. Medians and the quartiles. So 80, half of 80 is 40. So I'm going to put a line across and down from 40. We might not need these lines, but as soon as we see the graph, we're going to draw them on anyway. A quarter of 80 is 20, so we'll go across from 20, and I go down. And then 3/4 of 80 is 60, so I'm going to go across from 60, and I'm going to go down. Now obviously what I've not said so far is that you'll be better off on your GCSE exam using a pencil for this, at least at first. You might want to go over it in pen, but in case you get it wrong, do it in pencil at first. Now, if you remember, this number here is the lower quartile, so that looks to me like about 285. This number here is the median, which is 365-ish, and this one here at about 430 is the upper quartile. So that's lower quartile, median, and upper quartile. So as soon as you see a cumulative frequency curve, draw those three lines and find these three numbers. You might need them, you might not. In this question, we do need them. Interquartile range, remember, is upper quartile, take away lower quartile. So that is, from our page over here, 430 take away 285. So that would give us 430, 285. Let's do it with a quick calculation. 5, 2 take away 8, we can't do so 3, so 12 take away is 4, 3 take away 2, 145 there. Now the next bit of a tricky one, find an estimate for the numbers of workers of a weekly wage of more than £530. Well, cumulative frequency is all about up to, so if we go up from 530, then read across, we can see that there are 72 workers with less than £530. So if there's 80 in total, then that leaves us with 8 who have got more than £530. We're going to leave this question out, although it's one that you might be able to do. We're going to leave this question out, although that's one that you might be able to do. The first question that we really can't tackle at all is number 17, and I'm going to leave that one out as well. So the last one that we're going to try on the paper is question 18. So shape P is reflected in line x equals minus 1. So the x equals minus 1 line is here. Now this is where you get your tracing paper and you check it. So I'm going to do it just quickly without tracing paper, but if you are in an exam, make sure you've got your tracing paper and you do check your answer. Okay, so there is shape Q, and then shape Q is reflected in y equals 0. So y equals 0 is the x-axis. So here is shape R. And describe the single transformation that takes P onto R. So if we start here at P, how do we get around here to R? Well, if you can see it, look, we've taken that shape and we've rotated it. That must have been turned around to get to R, so it's a rotation. It does say single transformation, so only one transformation. So it's a rotation, and we need to say that it's gone 180 degrees. And then we need the centre of rotation, and this is where you get your tracing paper and try different points. If you trace shape P onto the tracing paper, and if you put your pencil on the point -1, 0, you'll find that it will rotate round and your shape will end exactly on R. So there's 3 marks for that, and there's 1 for saying rotation, 1 for saying 180 degrees, 1 for saying 1, 0, I think. So that was 41 marks for definite and an extra bonus 14 marks. So there's definitely enough there for a grade B. And that's not counting question 15, which you might be able to try, which is another 4 marks. Question 16, which is another 4 marks, which you might be able to try as well. And there was one other question, which was question 13, which is another 3 marks. So even without those questions, if we just concentrate on things that we've covered lots of times this year, plenty of marks for a grade C and even a grade B if you can get a lot of it right.